We tend to think of reality as the world outside our heads, right? The stuff that's solid, tangible, something we all share. But what if there's another reality, just as real, just as powerful, that's operating inside every single one of us? Today, we're diving deep into the great discovery of Carl Jung, the objective reality of our inner world. So let's start with one of Jung's most radical ideas, one that completely flips our view of life's final chapter. He argued that death isn't some meaningless failure or a random accident. Nope. For Jung, death is actually a goal, a purpose that our soul, our psyche, has been unconsciously working towards for the entire second half of our lives. It's not an ending, it's a completion. All right, I know what you're thinking. How on earth can death be an accomplishment? It sounds wild. But to get it, we need to explore Jung's view of the soul's journey, this sort of secret, purposeful preparation that's happening just beneath the surface of our everyday conscious lives. To really wrap our heads around this, we first have to understand what Jung meant by the psyche. And it's not just your thoughts and feelings. For Jung, the psyche is the entirety of your inner world, both the parts you're aware of and, crucially, the vast parts you're not. And here's the kicker. Jung saw this inner world not as some personal fantasy, but as an objective reality, as real as the physical world, with its own independent agenda. And Jung didn't just theorize about this. He saw it happen. He watched this journey unfold in a close friend, who he only ever identified as JS. Through a series of powerful dreams, JS started this incredible process of purification. He began to detach from the hustle of his business life and the old psychological bonds of his youth. And then the symbols started coming, leading to this unbelievable vision of his own soul being reborn from its earthly body. This, for Jung, was the psyche completing its final great work. Now, this same inner world doesn't just get us ready for death, it's also the wellspring of life's greatest creativity. Jung was convinced that true genius, true wisdom, doesn't come from forcing it with our intellect. It comes from learning to listen to this deeper part of ourselves. He really saw two different ways of creating. On one hand, you've got the discriminating intellect. That's our critical, conscious mind that tries to wrestle with problems, and, let's be honest, often produces work that feels a little forced, a little unnatural. But on the other hand, you have the utterances of the heart. This is the wisdom that just flows from the unconscious, effortlessly, when we just get out of the way and listen. It's like an Aeolian harp. It only makes music when the wind, that mood or intuition, blows through it. A perfect example of this was an author named Oscar Schmitz. This guy learned a pretty amazing skill. He figured out how to switch off his critical mind. He basically put his talent in the service of his unconscious, and he allowed stories to just pour out of him from a place way beyond his conscious control. He wasn't so much inventing them as he was receiving them. One of these stories was called The Tale of the Otter. And what's so fascinating is that Jung realized this wasn't just some kid's story. It was a symbolic map of Schmitz's own soul. The king, for instance, represents the conscious ego that's lost its connection to that deeper world. The otter is the unconscious self trying to reconnect. The nephew, that's the shadow, all the unacknowledged inferior parts of ourselves. And the harlot is the anima, the feminine side of the male psyche that needs to be integrated. The story was literally his psyche healing itself. In this experience, this process of letting the unconscious speak led both Schmitz and Jung to a monumental realization. This was the discovery that would change everything they thought they knew about the mind. You see, through these creative acts, Schmitz didn't just write cool stories. He discovered that the source of those stories, the psyche, was real. It wasn't a metaphor. It was a living, breathing, existing thing. And for him, Jung says this was the single most decisive experience of his entire life. So what does it really mean to say the psyche is real? What did this incredible discovery actually tell us about the nature of our own minds? Well, for starters, it revealed that our inner world is not just some private, subjective bubble filled with our own personal memories and opinions. Instead, and this is the big leap, Jung realized it's an objective reality. It's a world with its own structures, its own figures, that act independently of our conscious will, just like the characters in Schmitz's fairy tale. This all led him to his most powerful term for it, a psychic non-ego. And this is the core of his great discovery. Inside every one of us is a vast inner cosmos that we don't invent, we discover it. So this inner exploration, this dialogue with the psychic non-ego, it isn't just for artists and mystics. For Jung, this is the central task, the ultimate adventure of every single human life. As Jung himself put it, we search the stars for mysteries, but the greatest enigma in the entire world, the one that's closest to us, is ourselves. Understanding our own psychic nature, that's the real frontier, because it's the lens through which we experience absolutely everything else. And that, of course, leaves us with one final big question. If this vast objective world really does exist inside each of us, filled with its own wisdom, its own characters, its own purpose, what's waiting in yours?